Welcome to episode 3 of Reality Check. I'm Bob Ruth with Everbank. This is Tim Bray with Seaport Real Estate Group. We're here to talk to you today. We're starting to begin our series on the things you need to know to buy a house in this market. Let's start with some questions for Tim. Tim, when somebody who's a home buyer, prospective home buyer, picks up the phone and calls you or contacts you on the internet and says, "I'd like you to help me buy a house," how do you approach that? What do you do? What are you looking for?
Well, I think it's all about the questioning. I want to make sure that I'm working with somebody that's actually capable of purchasing a home. So most people think that they can just go out and get pre-qualified quickly, go online, get pre-qualified, which is a nightmare in itself,
right,
and maybe a different episode. But it's all about the questioning, and I need to make sure that they don't own a home currently. And if they do own a home, what price range is it in, and what are the chances that they're going to sell it? How many months of inventory are in their price range? Maybe they're not. The horse is before the cart, or the cart's before the horse.
Right.
So my first recommendation is: have you been pre-qualified? Who is it? Are you working with another agent? And then I bring in, what we have to do before I show you this home is I need to make sure that you are pre-qualified, because my time is at risk here.
Absolutely.
The sellers have to clean that home. They have to vacate and get out. So in order for me to show it, there's a ripple effect here. And if they're not qualified and prepared to buy that home, we're wasting everybody's time. And that's where you come into play.
Absolutely. Also, I think a lot of people don't totally understand the idea that you and I work on commission. Now, that doesn't mean we're bad people. It doesn't mean we're greedy people and we're going to try to stick it to you so we get paid. What it means is that we have to maximize and the involvement of time that we spend with our customers.
You only have so much time.
So that we're serving them. We don't want to spend time servicing customers that can't be served.
Yeah, and sometimes, there are certain examples. I've had somebody that just, they were in hard time, have had hard times.
Absolutely.
They need to move, and the only option they have is to maybe rent to own. And they're asking me to go show them 10 houses, and then they want to look at the 10 houses. Of the 10, they find 2 that they're interested in, and now I have to go and ask if these sellers are willing to do a rent to own. Doesn't work that way.
Right.
That's a lot of work.
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm not willing to do that work.
I've seen you do that. I've seen you help people with that.
Correct. But I have to know who I'm working with.
Right.
I have to know that, what their plans are. Have they had a bankruptcy? Have they had a foreclosure? Have they dealt with those issues in the past?
Right.
And that's when I go to you, and I lean on you as a resource to really help me maximize my time in helping other people.
Right. So the reality check here is that people sometimes will contact you and they haven't done the groundwork, the preparatory work to really figure out if they can buy, how much they can buy, and what kind of mortgage program, for example, they should be in. And so before you will take those people out and spend time, which may not be successful, you want to increase the likelihood that they will be a successful home buyer. So then you refer them back to me, and I help them by pre-qualifying them and figuring out how well they understand the process of financing and buying a house, and if they have enough money, and if their credit will enable them to buy a house. And if those things work, then I'll give them back to you with a pre-qualification or perhaps a pre-approval letter, so that you can show them houses.
And when I get somebody from you, and I know it's kind of like having a loaded gun. I'm going hunting.
That's kind of scary.
And I've got a loaded gun. But with that person that is not a customer, they become a client at this point, and I can actually do all the due diligence. I'm utilizing resources such as First American Title. I'm using statistical data. I'm making sure that when they give me those 10 houses, we're not hitting the road. I'm doing aerial views, making sure that a liquor store is not beside it, the high tension wires aren't running.
Right.
My time, it's half an hour maybe to get to that property.
Right.
So I want to make sure that that property, that the seller can actually sell it. Did they refinance it last year? Has the market declined since then? Is the property underwater, so to speak?
Right.
So I may axe out Out of the 10, I may axe out 7 of those. So we may go look at 3 actual properties,
Right.
but on average, I'm showing about 8 properties before we go under contract.
So one of the key things that Tim Bray does that gives huge value to his clients is you pre-screen
The properties.
the property to make sure it meets the parameters that the borrowers have told you that they want in a house, and that they could have a successful ownership experience with that house.
Oh, and my fear, and this is always in the back of my mind, is that these people are going to call me 3 years down the road and say, hey, Tim, I got transferred and I need to move somewhere else. Can you sell this? So the thought that's always going on in my head is when somebody purchases a home, first of all, we want to get the best deal we possibly can. But it needs to be in an area that we can sell it in the future.
So you're always thinking resale.
Absolutely.
That's like when you do something to your house to improve it, you should always be thinking, is this going to appeal to the person who might someday, either in 5 years or 25 years, buy my house? Would they want this in their house?
And it may not necessarily be your liking or your taste.
Right.
But you've got to think about the market as a whole and where the market is.
Right. So to kind of conclude this, when someone reaches out to Tim to try to enlist his help to buy, he's going to make sure that you are qualified to buy, that you have the resources to be able to put up the down payment and pay the closing costs to buy the house, and then and only then is he going to take you out
And show you
and
properties.
show you properties.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So that's our real estate reality check, episode 3.
Appreciate your time, Bob.
Thanks, Tim. You too.